Hello, and welcome to the Startup Breakdown. I'm your host, Adam Williams. Today's our first episode, and on this show, we're going to talk about entrepreneurs and startup businesses. So we figured for the first show, we'd talk about the first step in that process. So I've got three guests with me today who are going to tell us a little bit about what they think entrepreneurs should do in the first step of their business when they have an idea. So I'll have you guys introduce yourselves. We'll start with Beth. Go ahead, tell us your name, what you do, and why you think I brought you on the show.
All right, I'm Beth Zimmer. I'm with the Innovation Collaborative, and we're an organization that helps to catalyze a culture of entrepreneurship and startups across the region of northwestern Pennsylvania.
And how long has the Innovation Collaborative been in existence?
We've been a formal organization since the fall of 2014.
Okay. Brock?
I'm Brock Allen. I'm a thinker at Tech Tank, and it's a business we started about a year and a half ago to help ideas turn into reality with people that have never experienced the entrepreneurial field set. So we help people take what they have and turn into hopefully successful businesses. We also donated 2 ferns to this show, and we're behind 2 ferns, so we'd like to keep that. The reason I'm on the show is probably a little bit of comedic value.
Yeah, and fern support.
And fern support.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Sean?
I'm Sean Fedorko. I'm one of the co-founders and founding members at Radius CoWork. Radius is Erie's co-working space. I think the reason you have me on the show is because a co-working space is where many people will have their first desk or their first fern or any of their firsts for their business.
So tell me a little bit about it. I mean, you guys obviously deal with a lot of entrepreneurs in the ventures that you're involved with now. So when somebody comes to you with an idea, what do you tell people? What should they do first? If they have an idea, where should they kick things off? What should they do?
Sure, I'll take that. The first thing you should do is talk to everyone. There's no clear relationship in the order that every entrepreneur is going to have to take to solve their problems, to get questions answered, and to figure out what will matter for them. Some people have physical products, some people don't. Some people need a physical space, some don't. And figuring out where your idea is at in development is going to involve talking to everyone from lawyers to CPAs to real estate agents to web developers.
So with a co-working space, for people who aren't familiar with it, what type of services do you offer to people? Can I go in there and use a 3D printer? Do you have plastic injection molders? What can I do in a co-working space?
We don't. We think places that have that are probably a little silly, we would say.
They are.
No, those are critical, but they're not the kind of service we meet. So we provide one solution, your first desk. And that goes on to encapsulate what is probably one of the most valuable resources for a new entrepreneur, a young entrepreneur, a young business, is the community of supporters who will be able to provide those answers. So in a co-working space, you work with 10, 20, 30, 50 other businesses who are at some stage of development, whether they're 5 years on or 5 minutes on. And in that environment, you're able to bat around ideas with others while you also have a location to begin working before you go buy an office or a building.
So if I need space to operate my business and that space is a generic office space, sort of, I can come to a co-working space and have that available to
Absolutely, especially if you need coffee.
So how about you, Brock? With Tech Tank, how does what you do to help entrepreneurs, how does that differ from what a co-working space does?
I think the co-working space is definitely a great place to get started. You know, going off what Sean said, it's very important to find out if you want to go down the road of entrepreneurship. A lot of people have a preconceived notion due to, I would say, TV shows such as Shark Tank. And they watch the TV show, they think it's very easy. There's a lot of ups and downs. The way I'd like to describe it is it's a very crazy roller coaster. There's a lot of low points, a lot of high points, and how you manage those in between is, going to be directly related to the success of your business. So,
and with Tech Tank, my understanding is you're maybe more of an incubator. You help people who want to prototype or create inventions and things like that. Is that what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Correct. It's not so much an incubator, it's more of an accelerator. So people will come into us, we have a guided pathway that we can take you down, because a lot of people that just get into entrepreneurship don't realize what paths they should take. And I think a lot of people spend the majority of their time figuring out where the next move is and what resources are available. So we use our resource to show them what our network is and the next places they need to investigate to make their business successful.
And Beth, your role is probably a little bit different because you aren't operating a physical space. You don't physically make products or have services available. But tell me what you do with the Innovation Collaborative with somebody who has an idea and they come to you with it. Where do you send them?
Sure. I kind of take off from Sean's advice is truly, you need to test your idea. So most successful entrepreneurs have a solution. They go out to friends and family, the streets, people that they don't know, and they ask them, this is a problem for me. Is this a problem for you? This is a solution I've come up with. Do you agree? How would you make it better? How would you change it? Do you disagree? And before spending way too much time, money, and resources on an idea that maybe nobody's going to buy, you can come back and iterate and change your idea or realize that that's not going to work. And what's my next idea? What's my next solution? So talking to people, a lot of folks come to us and they've got this secret idea and they don't want to share it with anyone. Please don't share it. Will you sign an NDA? Well, guess what? There are hundreds of thousands of millions of great ideas out there. It's all in the execution and talking to people and iterating so before you go to market that this solution is one that's going to be adopted or purchased. That's best case scenario.
So you mentioned, I think, 2 points there that are pretty important. One is what the MBA types would call market research. You want to find out if there are customers out there for the product or service that you have. But you also said that there are lots of other good ideas too. So we may call that sort of competitive research and looking at what your competitors are doing and what types of services that they're offering. In the few years that each of you have been working on these products, how have you seen people maybe fail in these endeavors when they take that first step and maybe it's in the wrong direction? How have you seen that work for different people? If anybody wants to pitch in there. Brock, have you had any projects that you've worked on that maybe haven't worked out so well?
Absolutely. We've had a project or two or multiple projects that come through, and I think the first part, as we've all discussed, is the evaluation point. And when customers come in and start to go through the breakdowns of what potential finances or the market looks like, those are the barriers. Even moving faster in projects that they've typically been comfortable with has been a barrier for them to get in. So it kind of goes back to the point to make sure that you're able to go into the space of entrepreneurialism. You have to be able to handle the ups and downs and problem solve. And
each of you have people that come to you with ideas, and maybe you help them with office space, or you help them with the prototype, or you send them in another direction to someone who can help them. Is there what you would call a typical entrepreneur, someone that you're seeing every single day? I mean, do they all look the same, or what do you see in entrepreneurs?
No, in fact, at Radius, we have probably half our members are above the age of 30, half under, half are women, half are men, half are in tech, half are in something totally different. And we lean towards tech mostly because that's what you can do at a desk. You can make your whole product there. But there's really no universal attribute aside from one, and that is a willingness to solve every successive problem. So the people who become successful entrepreneurs, or who really even get there to try, are typically the kind of people who will tackle a problem and then tackle the next one and then tackle 5 at a time. And they won't give up in the face of any one.
So there are obviously a lot of books out there on how to start a business, and oftentimes the very first or second chapter of that book says you need to make sure that you actually want to be an entrepreneur. Brock, you said earlier, a lot of people think it's easy. You're going to walk on Shark Tank and pitch your product. So maybe there isn't one specific mold of a successful entrepreneur, but other than identifying problems, are there any other characteristics of good entrepreneurs that you guys see in your jobs?
I think from our side, it's typically the passion. So someone comes to us and we found a great deal of passion through people that have actually experienced the problem. So 2 ways of starting a business is I want to start a business and find a problem, or I found a problem and a solution and I'd like to make a business out of that. So we find that the second is more successful due to their passion and involvement in trying to solve a real life problem that they've actually had before.
So your experience has been people who are looking to solve a problem, instead of just go out and make a whole bunch of money, maybe they end up being a little more successful in their ventures? That's been your experience?
Absolutely, and I think the focus on money typically is an inexperienced side effect. So the side effect of a business can be making money, but the actual focus needs to be on solving the problem.
But it's still not something you want to completely ignore, right?
Absolutely.
If you're going to have a coffee shop and you have to pay rent, how many cups of coffee do you have to sell every month to pay your rent? That's still part of the analysis, right?
Absolutely.
And at what point in the process do you think people should be engaging in that process and doing the math to figure out whether this is going to be profitable or whether there is a market?
It depends on the product they have, and from what we've seen, if you have to go out and borrow money from people, you absolutely want to make sure that you know what your product is. You don't want to take debt on. It all comes down to risk, so it depends on how much risk you want to put out to test the market. And I think once they've tested the market and found it's a good product, they should move forward with it.
So that's a good point. So Beth, I want you to tell us a little bit about, I don't even remember the name, but I think it's like the ecosystem map that the Innovation Collaborative helped establish. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is? Because I think that can often be a good first step for a lot of people.
Sure, and I wish I would have brought a prop with me, but it's the ecosystem asset map is a listing of all the organizations that exist in full or in part across Northwest Pennsylvania to serve entrepreneurs and help them grow and scale. So if you look at the asset map, it's available on our website at startupepa.com, but it can be really overwhelming. So reaching out to the Innovation Collaborative or Radius CoWork or Tech Tank or Adam Williams or a lot of other folks across the region that you might know to get help to navigate that ecosystem is key. There are, idea creators, which are universities, accelerators, incubators, libraries, high schools, et cetera. There are service providers like the universities, the SBDCs, the Athena Powerlinks, the mentoring organizations. There are capital arms, financing arms. There are advocates like social media and media in general. There are all types of organizations that exist to help you. If you have an idea on a napkin or you've got an idea and a product and you've got it to market, but you're stuck and you need to help getting over that plateau, or you don't know what you don't know about your finances, there are a lot of organizations and people here in the region that are really looking to help you.
So with that map, though, if I look at a map, a physical map of a trip I want to take, I'm going to follow a certain path. Is that what your map looks like?
Not yet.
Okay.
We are working on a second iteration, and that should be coming out hopefully within the next calendar year. But for now, we've got the ecosystem map and human beings that can help you make those connections.
So the idea is if I go to one of the resource providers on that map, theoretically, they should be able to point me in the direction in that network of maybe where I should go next.
Absolutely.
And how much time did it take the Innovation Collaborative to assemble that map of that network?
It took us a good probably 6 to 9 months.
So it's a pretty thorough product.
It's very thorough, and we update it at least once a year because things change, organizations change their name or get merged into something else or, God forbid, disappear. So we want to make sure that it's accurate. So we do update it at least annually.
That sounds great. Well, I think on that, we'll go into a quick break, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
The NCAA Division II student-athlete experience goes beyond the classrooms and playing fields. It means a commitment to service and community, helping organizations like the Make-A-Wish Foundation by raising money to help grant the wishes of children with life-threatening medical conditions. Kids like Jacob.
Some student-athletes gave of their time and their energy to raise the money.
It was fun to meet Jeff Gordon.
NCAA Division II, training student-athletes for lifelong achievement.
So good to see you guys. So, what's up? Oh, we finally bought a place. Holy cow.
You seriously have enough saved to do that?
We've been putting a little aside each month.
Jeez, at the end of the month, we have nothing left to save.
Yeah, I have no idea where it goes.
Well, you're spending a lot on...
Ugh,
Was it good?
Oh, God.
Oh, how is my account overdrawn?
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org.
Welcome back to the Startup Breakdown. I'm here today with Beth Zimmer from the Innovation Collaborative, Brock Allen from Tech Tank, and Sean Fedorko from Radius CoWork. And we're talking about the first step. When an entrepreneur has an idea, what these three experts on the subject think somebody should do at the very first moment when they have an idea and want to turn that into a business. One of the things that we were talking about is the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Erie, Pennsylvania, and the resources that are available to entrepreneurs regardless of what stage that they're at. I see a lot of new businesses that come to me, obviously in my work as an attorney, and a lot of times they don't have a whole lot of money to spend on their business, or especially on legal fees. So one of the things I think it would be good for us to talk about is financing, and if people are limited with resources, what should they do? How should they get some money together so that they can test their business out? So if any of you would like to talk about what you've seen in that regard, or maybe what the best ways to go about that are.
Yeah, in fact, that's kind of a role that a co-working space plays. A co-working space is effectively a month-to-month membership for a business, a place to operate, kind of like a gym. We have your desks, your internet, your print services, and by being a month-to-month membership and providing all those resources, you're not spending thousands up front to secure a commercial lease, buy equipment like printers and desks and chairs.
Or your own ferns.
Or your own ferns. So you help control costs in that way. You find efficiencies. But the most important way to generate money to pay for your new business is to find somebody willing to pay for your product or your service. You can start out with the smallest amount of revenue, and then you can grow it. And in something like a co-working space, it only means making more money next month than you did this month.
So you think a good way to start a business is to actually start selling your product or service and making money off of it?
Absolutely, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you are quitting whatever job you've had as your primary source of income. You can begin to transition. That's the side hustle. That's doing work to start your new source of income, and then when it's appropriate, when it's sufficient, switching over to make that your full-time position.
So you're saying that I can start a business part-time, and maybe if that grows or expands, then I can take it from there and expand and
absolutely
potentially quit my secure job with a consistent paycheck.
Absolutely.
And co-working is a good way to do that. I mean, even if I'm going to go to a coffee shop with my laptop and get work done, I can go to a co-working space for probably less money per day and get free coffee.
That's what we tell people. Come to a co-working space where your membership is for the desk and the coffee is free.
So Brock, your story may be a little bit different there, because a lot of times people that you work with are actually selling a product. So they need some funds available to them to even create what it is that they're going to sell. So what experiences have you had with people maybe going down that path?
I think in the most part, what you want to do is create, and what we've done is had a streamlined, structured process to allow people to go down. So time's very important. And we've seen many people come in and they've spent multiple years on trying to make the first prototype. And in between those times, they've had 4 or 5 meetings. They really haven't had any structure behind what they've wanted to do, and they look back 2 years and say, I really haven't gotten anywhere. So that structure to first prototype to concept to be able to test the market is very important. So it's not just the dollars you pull out of your pocket, it's the time that you've spent and the time that you've been able to take that product from A to B.
And actually, something that I'm hearing from both of you guys is, there's a service or an expertise that you can offer to entrepreneurs through your business. So with your office space and the networks and the connections that you have, Sean, or Brock, with your prototyping and manufacturing experiences, those can help people along the way. So you guys may be experts that people go to for things about that. And then Beth, we come back to your network, your ecosystem map, because again, not only experts in services or in products, but legal advice, obviously, or accounting, or marketing, or financing. Those are all resources that work through the Innovation Collaborative
Sure.
to help entrepreneurs?
Absolutely.
Okay. What about companies who are looking to get financing? It's either through investments or banks or friends and family. What experiences have you had with people who maybe do need a little more cash than they're getting from their day job to start things up? Where do people turn when they need help with that?
I think in general, most folks will reach out to friends and family first. Say, again, testing their idea, testing their solution with those folks that they trust and are most comfortable with, and asking them, do you believe in me enough, and do you believe in my solution enough to give me some cash to help me get started? And then moving on towards, hopefully you're building your solution and you can raise money by acquiring customers as quickly as possible. But if you find yourself in a capital intensive industry with a really expensive need to prototype something that's beyond the norm, working with the different organizations throughout the region like Ben Franklin Technology Partners if you have a tech bend, or working with the angel investors if you're an early stage, really high growth potential organization that wants to exit or cash out or sell your business in 5 to 7 years. Those are options. And there are also some loan funds. If you're not bankable, you can go potentially to Bridgeway Capital, who's a mission-driven community development finance institute that has kind of some good, they're mission-driven and they provide some decent interest rate loans, but they also provide ancillary services around you to help you make sure that you're successful and obviously can pay the loan back and grow from there. So there are options.
If I have a business idea and I take it to my friends and family, you guys are obviously all going to invest because you know how successful that I'm going to be. But if I'm going to go to a bank or to an investor, whether it's an angel investor or a venture capitalist or whatever, what type of things do those entities like to see before they'll just cut you a check?
Well, first and foremost, they're going to want to have confidence in you. More than half the investment is not necessarily in the idea, the technology, the service. Many people will be required to execute on that, and many other people could execute on that idea given the opportunity. The question comes down to how well can this particular person execute? How good are they going to be at managing a large team if a large team is necessary? How much do they excel at developing the technology if they think they will be the one to develop the technology? What is their skill set and expertise? And then what is their discipline and their passion such that they'd be willing to and able to commit to that?
But how do I communicate that to a bank, or how do I communicate that to an investor? I mean, obviously I can sit down and talk with them, but is there any type of documentation or anything that I can give these people that may help them be more convinced to give me money?
There are surely best practice pitch type trainings that you can go to, or with the all-knowing internet, there are lots of opportunities to view best practice, say angel investor or just investor pitches. There are guidelines that come along with those. Sean is absolutely right. More than 50% of the decision of an investment is based on the management team. And then it comes down to product and disruption in an industry, et cetera, et cetera. But I forgot where I was.
Well, I think an important part of that preparation is, do you document everything you have in your head? So have you got a definitive process for how this product will be made or service? Do you have an organized description of the team? Have you projected the financials such that you are investable by a bank or a venture capitalist, whatever your scale is, or your friends? Can you demonstrate that there's going to be a return on this investment? And then, do you understand the market? So have you defined your competitors? Have you defined your competitive advantage over them, if you have one? Or have you defined your differentiation, such that you're creating a new market segment?
You've basically just given us the table of contents to a business plan. Right? I mean, those are all of the topics that investors want to see before they decide to invest in you. And one of the resources that I send a lot of clients to is the Small Business Development Center at Gannon. So that you can go there for your first step seminar, and they'll talk about a lot of the things that we're talking about today and maybe get you pointed in the direction to write a business plan. For those of you who have worked with business plans, is that something that I write it up front and then I'm just going to stick with that for the rest of my endeavor, or what experience do you have with those things and maybe how they may change over time?
So we've created business plans before for businesses that we've had, and they're mainly in the technology industry. And a business plan should be a living document. So that's always something that's changing, that you're updating, that you're moving forward. And I think one of the things that hits me is you come out and they ask for 3 or 5 year projections on what you're going to be doing, and we've looked back at those business plans 3 years later, and we're in a totally different area than we thought. And I think it's very important to keep in mind that you need to be able to shift your business, so keep your opportunities open, and if a window does come open with potential opportunity and you feel it's a great way to take your business, you need to make sure that your business is built so it can shift and not necessarily stay in the path that your original business plan was aimed for.
So you may have to adapt, and you may have to pivot over time.
Absolutely, you should.
And Sean, you think we need to have the right type of person pushing that venture along to make sure that they're able to do that. Well, I think with that, I think I'll let you go down the row here and maybe give some closing remarks, any advice that you may have to somebody who wants to start a business in Erie and maybe where they can head. And I don't know which one of you wants to go first, so we'll toss it out there for anybody.
I'll go ahead and open. My advice is to just do it. You just have to begin. That's the most difficult part, is beginning the process. Going out, talking to somebody, deciding you're going to dedicate time to looking up a business plan, to starting to put something down on paper. At the beginning, when you think you might have an idea that maybe you want to turn into a business, there are infinite unknowns. And you want to break those infinite unknowns into some distinct categories with a few distinct options and some variables that you've established as certainties. And once you have that, then it's just easier every day to move forward onto the next question, because you've identified something that you can rely on in the next step of the process. But getting started is as easy as getting started. You just talk to somebody.
So speaking of getting started, Sean, this morning when you got dressed, did you intentionally match your purple tie to your purple socks?
I absolutely did. I would never dress any other way.
Speaking of not dressing any other way, we have Brock today who
Absolutely,
came
I have
casually.
the quarter zip up, and I wanted to look a little bit different than everyone else.
So give us your closing statement. What piece of advice would you give to somebody who wants to venture out on their own and take a shot at this?
I would say don't be afraid to fail. I think that's probably one of the biggest key points, is that, you know, in a business, if you try, it's not a failure. It's either you succeed or you learn a lesson. So taking that away, don't be afraid to take that jump that you might not make it where you are, because it's a succession of learning that's going to lead to your ultimate success.
And that could be something either that you learn on this venture and you maybe change directions, or you shut it down but you take those experiences onto the next venture and learn from that. That's great advice. Beth, what about you? What advice do you have to anybody who wants to take the first step?
If you have an idea and it's a solution to a problem that you have, and you're super passionate about serving that problem up to others to help others, just do it, get started, have faith, and be extremely persistent and focused on the end game, which is solving this problem for other people. The money's going to come, the adoption's going to come if you're truly solving a problem for other folks. And, you know, again, have patience and persistence and just keep working at it. Failures are going to come, small and big, lessons are going to be learned, but truly just keep the focus and persevere through, over and under and through the barriers, and surround yourself with people that are smarter than you in other areas that you're possibly weak.
I think that's great advice as well. And an important thing for a lot of entrepreneurs to know is that there isn't a linear path. There isn't a set of instructions that you follow. You may be jumping in at any stage or at any point in your ecosystem map, and you just need to keep pushing forward and not be afraid to change directions when you have to. So that's great advice. Thank you guys very much for being on today. That's it for our show today. We'll be back in a couple weeks with the second step of starting a business. Thank you very much.